The conference room on the 32nd floor was all glass and sharp edges. Sarah Chen stood at the head of the table, laser pointer in hand, walking 3 Mexican investors through the final slide of her pitch deck. $2 million hung in the balance, a contract that would cement her promotion to director before year-end. Clause 17 ensures exclusivity across Latin American markets, she said, clicking to the next slide. No competing partnerships for 18 months. Carlos Mendoza, the CEO seated at the far end, nodded slowly. His colleagues scribbled notes. The room smelled like expensive cologne and ambition. The door opened with a soft beep. A badge reader blinked green. Maria stepped in, pushing a cleaning cart. She wore the standard Navy uniform, hair tied back, ID badge clipped to her chest. She moved quietly toward the trash bin near the window. Sarah barely glanced up. "No English, right?" she said with a light laugh, gesturing toward Maria. "We're fine to keep going." Carlos looked at Maria for half a second, then back at his notes. Sarah clicked to the next slide. "Our logistics network covers 14 cities," Sarah continued, her voice confident, rehearsed. "Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, full distribution infrastructure already in place. Your team won't need to build from scratch." Maria emptied the trash bin. The sound of glass bottles clinking together broke the rhythm of Sarah's presentation for just a moment. Sarah paused, smiled tightly, and kept talking. "Revenue projections for Q3 are conservative," she said, pulling up a bar chart. "We're estimating 8.2 million in the first quarter post-launch, scaling to 15 million by month 6. Maria wiped down the side table with a microfiber cloth, her movements methodical. She replaced the water pitcher, checked the coffee station, adjusted the stack of napkins. One of Carlos's colleagues leaned over and whispered something in Spanish. Carlos nodded, made a note in the margin of his folder. Maria moved to the recycling bin near the door. 18 minutes, start to finish. She smiled politely when Sarah made brief eye contact, then pushed her cart toward the exit. The badge reader blinked green again as she swiped out. Sarah closed the meeting 20 minutes later with handshakes and promises to finalize signatures by Friday. Carlos's handshake was firm but brief, professional. "We'll review internally and respond by Wednesday," Carlos said. "Perfect," Sarah replied. "I'm confident you'll see this is the right partnership." Carlos smiled, thin, unreadable. "We'll be in touch." Sarah watched them leave, then gathered her materials. She felt good. The pitch had been flawless. The numbers were solid. The deal was hers. She didn't think about the cleaner again. 3 weeks later, Sarah's phone lit up with a calendar alert. Urgent. Board meeting, 9 a.m. No agenda attached, no context. Just a red exclamation mark next to the time. She'd been in back-to-back meetings all morning. The Mendoza contract was supposed to close any day now. She'd been refreshing her email obsessively, waiting for the signed PDF to come through. This board meeting felt like a formality, maybe even a celebration. She walked into the executive conference room to find the VP of Operations, the Chief Compliance Officer, and 2 attorneys waiting. No coffee, no pastries, no small talk. "Sit down," the VP said. Sarah sat. Her pulse quickened. The compliance officer slid a printed email across the table. The subject line read, "Contract termination, Mendoza Group." Sarah's breath caught. "Carlos Mendoza pulled the deal this morning," the VP said, his voice flat. "Effective immediately. He's claiming a confidentiality breach. Says specific terms from our negotiation leaked to a competitor before we even had signatures on paper." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "That's impossible. I didn't tell anyone. The presentation file is password protected. I haven't even forwarded the deck internally. Only 4 people were in that room." 5, the compliance officer corrected. He turned his laptop toward her. A spreadsheet filled the screen rows of timestamps, badge numbers, access codes. "We ran the badge reader logs for that night. Your meeting started at 7:14 p.m., ended at 8:41 p.m. Access records show 1 additional entry during that window." He clicked. A single line highlighted in yellow. "Maria Valdez, facilities, entry 7:16 p.m., exit 7:34 p.m. 18 minutes, he said. Sarah stared at the screen. "The cleaner, she was just emptying trash. She doesn't even speak English." The VP leaned forward, hands folded. "Mendoza's demanding a full security audit. He wants to know the identity of everyone who was physically present in that room during the negotiation. That includes her." She had nothing to do with this, Sarah said, her voice rising. She empties trash cans. She doesn't sit in on strategy meetings. This is a waste of time. Whoever leaked this information had to have access to the actual files, the financial models, We're investigating all channels, one of the attorneys interrupted. IT security is pulling server logs. We're auditing email access. But Mendoza specifically mentioned that he's concerned about who was physically in the room. He says the leak included details that weren't in the deck, things that were only discussed verbally. Sarah's mind raced. She tried to remember what she'd said during the presentation. The revenue numbers were in the slides. The logistics cities were in the slides. But the exclusivity clause, she'd elaborated on that verbally. She'd explained the competitive advantage, the market positioning. Then we confirm that, the compliance officer said coolly. And we move on. But right now, she's the only anomaly in the access log. She's the only person who had access to that information who wasn't supposed to be hearing it. One of the attorneys spoke up. If Mendoza pursues this legally, we need documentation. We need to interview everyone who had access to that information, no matter how unlikely. That includes facility staff. Sarah felt heat rising in her face. This is insane. You're wasting time chasing a cleaner while the actual breach could be coming from anywhere: IT, finance, someone on the Mendoza side. We'll investigate all channels, the VP said. But we start with the access log. The badge reader doesn't lie. If she was in that room, we need to know what she heard and who she might have told. Sarah slumped back in her chair. $2 million, 18 months of work. Her promotion, all of it evaporating because someone thought a woman emptying trash cans was a security risk. Bring her in, the VP said. Maria was called in the next morning. She arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, still in her uniform. She'd been working the night shift and hadn't gone home yet. Her hair was tied back in the same neat bun. Her badge hung from a lanyard around her neck. She carried a small backpack, probably her street clothes for the commute home. Sarah sat across from her in the small conference room adjacent to HR, arms crossed. The compliance officer sat at the head of the table, a legal pad open in front of him, a voice recorder placed in the center. This is just a standard procedural interview, the officer said, his tone measured, almost condescending. Nothing to be concerned about. We're documenting everyone who had access to a specific meeting space 3 weeks ago. Do you understand? Maria nodded. For the record, please state your full name and position. Maria Valdez, she said quietly. Facilities associate, night shift. The officer made a note. Maria, on October 8th, you clocked in at 6:47 p.m. Our badge reader logs show you accessed the executive conference room on the 32nd floor at 7:16 p.m. Do you remember? Yes, Maria said in perfect, unaccented English. I remember. The room went still. Sarah straightened in her chair, eyes narrowing. The compliance officer blinked, pen hovering over his notepad. You speak English? I do, Maria said, meeting his gaze directly. I also speak Spanish, Portuguese, and French. I studied business administration at UNAM in Mexico City before I moved here 2 years ago. I graduated with honors. Sarah's face went pale. You what? Maria turned to look at her. Her expression was calm, neutral, professional. I was in the room for 18 minutes, according to the access log. I heard the entire presentation. Clause 17 regarding market exclusivity. The revenue projections for Q3 and Q4. The logistics network spanning 14 cities in Mexico. The competitive analysis you did verbally about the other firms bidding for the contract. She paused. I also heard the comment you made about me not speaking English. Sarah opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The compliance officer cleared his throat, recovering. Did you discuss any of the information you heard in that meeting with anyone outside this company? No, Maria said simply. I cleaned the trash, wiped down the tables, refilled the water station, and left. That's my job. Did you discuss it with anyone inside the company? Friends, co-workers, supervisors? No, I don't discuss confidential business information I overhear during my shifts. That would be unprofessional. The officer leaned back in his chair, studying her. Why didn't you correct the assumption about the language barrier? When Ms. Chen made that comment, you could have said something. Maria's jaw tightened just slightly. Would it have mattered? The question hung in the air like smoke. Sarah felt something twist in her chest. I'm wearing a cleaning uniform, Maria continued. I'm pushing a cart. I'm there to empty trash and wipe tables. In my experience, people don't want to be corrected by someone they've already decided isn't worth acknowledging. It's easier to smile and do the work. The compliance officer shifted uncomfortably. For the official record, I need your full legal name. Not the name on your employee badge, your full name, as it appears on your government identification. Maria hesitated, just for a second. Her eyes flicked to Sarah, then back to the officer. Maria Alejandra Mendoza Valdez. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's eyes went wide. Mendoza? The compliance officer's pen stopped mid-stroke. He stared at Maria. As in Carlos Mendoza? The CEO of… Carlos Mendoza is my older brother, Maria said quietly. I left Mexico 2 years ago. I wanted to work without the family name, without the assumptions people make when they hear it. I didn't tell him where I was living. I didn't tell him I was working here. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. You're his sister? Yes. The compliance officer stood abruptly. Excuse me. He grabbed his phone and stepped out of the room, the door clicking shut behind him. Sarah stared at Maria across the table. Her mind was racing, trying to rewind the meeting, trying to remember everything she'd said, every offhand comment, every detail she'd shared about the competitive landscape. Why didn't you say anything? Sarah stammered. Why didn't you tell anyone who you are? Maria's expression didn't change. Would you have treated me differently if you knew? Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't. I didn't come here to spy on my brother's business deals, Maria said. I didn't even know he was meeting with this company until I walked into that room and saw him sitting at the table. I recognized him immediately. He didn't recognize me. I've changed my hair. I've lost weight, and he wasn't expecting to see me in a place like this. Why are you working as a cleaner if your family… Because I wanted to prove something to myself, Maria interrupted. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it now. I wanted to know if I could build a life on my own terms. Without my family's money, without my brother's name opening doors before I even walked through them. I wanted to work, to earn, to survive without anyone handing me anything. Sarah felt sick. But the badge reader doesn't lie, Maria said. I was there. I heard everything. And now my brother thinks this company leaked his confidential information because someone saw me in that room and assumed I was nobody. I didn't know, Sarah said, her voice cracking. I didn't… Exactly, Maria said, her tone sharper now. You didn't know. And you didn't care to know. You saw a uniform and you made a decision about who I was and what I was worth. You made a joke at my expense because you thought I couldn't understand it. You dismissed me as part of the furniture. The door opened. The compliance officer stepped back in, phone still in hand. His face was ashen. I just spoke with Carlos Mendoza, he said slowly. He confirmed everything. Maria is his younger sister. He had no idea she was working here. He hasn't seen her in 2 years. She left Mexico without telling the family where she was going. He looked at Sarah, and his expression was something between anger and resignation. He also confirmed that the confidentiality breach wasn't espionage. The officer continued. It was disrespect. His exact words. You treated my sister like furniture in a room where you were negotiating with me. She wasn't invisible. You just chose not to see her. And now I'm choosing not to see you. Sarah felt the floor tilt beneath her. The officer set his phone down. He's requested a private call with Maria before he makes any final decisions about the contract or potential legal action. Maria, are you willing to speak with him? Maria nodded. Yes. Then we'll set that up for this afternoon. He looked at Sarah. You're suspended pending internal review. Clear your desk and leave the building by noon. Sarah stood, legs shaking. She wanted to say something, apologize, explain, beg for another chance, but the words wouldn't come. Maria watched her leave, expression unreadable. The board convened within the hour. By noon, Sarah's desk was empty. Her access badge deactivated. Her company email forwarding to HR. The Mendoza Group contract, $2 million, 18 months of projected revenue, a cornerstone deal for the fiscal year evaporated. The legal team began preparing termination paperwork for Sarah and drafting liability assessments in case Carlos Mendoza decided to pursue damages. But Carlos didn't respond to emails. He didn't take calls from the VP. He didn't engage with the public apology the company drafted. He requested only one thing, a video conference with his sister. The call was scheduled for 4 p.m. that same day. Maria sat alone in a small meeting room on the 15th floor, her laptop open on the table in front of her. She'd changed out of her uniform into plain jeans and a gray sweater, something that felt like hers, not the company's. Her hair was down now, loose around her shoulders. The call connected. Carlos appeared on screen. He looked older than she remembered, lines around his eyes she didn't recognize. His jaw was tight, his expression a mixture of relief and anger. "Mariposa," he said softly in Spanish. Little Butterfly, his nickname for her since childhood. "Hola, Carlos," Maria replied, also in Spanish. For a moment, neither of them spoke. 2 years of silence sat between them like a wall. "You should have told me where you were," Carlos said finally. "Mama has been sick with worry. She thinks something happened to you." "I'm fine," Maria said. "I just needed space." "Space?" Carlos laughed bitterly. "You disappeared. You changed your name. You're working as a cleaner in a building where I'm doing business, and you didn't think to mention it?" "I didn't know you were doing business here until I walked into that room." "And when you saw me? You didn't think to say something then?" Maria looked down at her hands. "What was I supposed to say?" "Hi, Carlos. It's me, your sister. I'm just here to empty your trash." Carlos exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. "This is insane." "I wanted to do this on my own," Maria said, "without your name protecting me, without people treating me differently because of who our family is. I wanted to know if I could survive, if I could build something real, without all of that." "And how did that work out?" Carlos asked, his tone softer now. Maria looked up at the camera. "I learned a lot. They humiliated you." "One person made an assumption," Maria corrected. "One person didn't see me. That's not the whole company. Most of the people here are kind. They say hello. They treat me like a person." Carlos leaned closer to the screen. "What do you want me to do, Maria? Because right now, I'm ready to bury them. I can file a lawsuit for emotional distress, for hostile work environment, for—" "I don't want a lawsuit," Maria said. "Then what? You want me to just let this go? Pretend it didn't happen?" Maria was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the badge reader log, the 18 minutes, the joke that wasn't really a joke, the way Sarah's face had changed when she heard the surname. "I don't want her fired," Maria said in English. Carlos frowned. "Why not?" "Because firing her doesn't fix anything. It just makes her a victim in her own story. She'll tell people she got fired for a misunderstanding. She'll convince herself she didn't do anything wrong. She'll never actually face what she did. Then what do you want?" Maria leaned closer to the screen. "I want her to understand what she did. Publicly, in front of everyone who saw her treat me like I didn't exist. I want her to say it out loud, in a room full of people, so she has to hear herself admit it." Carlos studied his sister's face for a long time. Then he nodded, once. "Okay, I'll make the call." "And Carlos?" "Yeah?" "Call Mama. Tell her I'm okay." Carlos smiled, sad but genuine. "I will." 2 days later, the entire company was summoned to the main conference hall on the ground floor. The email went out at 8 a.m. Mandatory all-staff meeting, 10 a.m., main hall. Attendance required. No explanation, no agenda, no context. Rumors flew through the office faster than the email chain. Layoffs, restructuring, acquisition, bankruptcy. Sarah stood near the front of the room, hands trembling. She'd been called into the VP's office at 7:30 that morning and given the terms in writing. "You will read the attached statement in front of all staff. You will acknowledge your actions and their consequences. If you refuse, your termination will be immediate and we will not provide a reference. If you comply, you will retain your position, but any future promotion opportunities will be contingent on demonstrated behavioral change." She'd signed the agreement with a shaking hand. Now, 200 employees filled the rows of chairs, murmuring to each other, checking phones, glancing at the clock. The energy in the room was tense, uncertain. Sarah felt every pair of eyes on her back. Maria entered from the side door at 9:58 a.m., still in her navy uniform. She walked to the center of the room and stood next to the podium, hands clasped in front of her. She didn't sit. She didn't fidget. Her expression was calm, neutral. The VP of Operations stepped forward at exactly 10 CEAM, tapping the microphone to quiet the room. "Thank you all for coming on short notice," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "I know there's been a lot of speculation about why we're here. This meeting is about accountability. 3 weeks ago, a significant lapse in judgment jeopardized a major contract and disrespected a valued member of our team. Today, we're addressing that lapse directly and publicly, because transparency matters." He gestured toward Sarah. "Sarah Chen, please come forward." Sarah walked to the podium on legs that felt like they might give out. Her prepared statement was folded in her hand, the paper damp with sweat. She unfolded it slowly, hands shaking so badly the paper rustled audibly in the microphone. She read, "On October 8th, I conducted a client meeting with the Mendoza Group in the executive conference room on the 32nd floor. The meeting was scheduled from 7:14 p.m. to approximately 8:40 p.m. During that meeting, Maria Mendoza entered the room at 7:16 p.m. to perform her scheduled duties as a member of our facilities team." Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat and continued. "At the time Maria entered, I was in the middle of presenting confidential contract terms to the client. When I noticed her, I made a comment. I said, 'No English, right?' and laughed. I then continued my presentation without adjusting my language or content, under the assumption that Maria could not understand what I was saying. She looked up. Maria's face was calm, unreadable. I was wrong. Maria speaks 4 languages fluently, including English. She holds a degree in business administration from a prestigious university in Mexico City, and she is the younger sister of Carlos Mendoza, the CEO of the company I was pitching to that night." A murmur rippled through the audience. People leaned forward. The badge reader access log confirms that Maria was present in the room for 18 minutes while I discussed revenue projections, market strategies, competitive positioning, and exclusivity clauses, all confidential information. During that entire time, I treated her as if she were invisible. I didn't acknowledge her as a professional. I didn't see her as a person with education, skills, or value beyond the task she was performing in that moment. Sarah's hands trembled against the podium. She could feel sweat running down her back. Because of my assumption, because I judged Maria based on her uniform, rather than taking even a moment to see her as a whole person, this company nearly lost a $2 million contract. Carlos Mendoza canceled negotiations because he felt his sister had been disrespected in a room where his business was being discussed. He was right. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. Maria Mendoza deserves respect. Every person in this building deserves respect, regardless of their role, their title, or their uniform. I failed to give her that. I failed this company, and I failed the values we claim to represent." She paused, forcing herself to look directly at Maria. "I'm sorry." She stepped back from the podium. The room was completely silent. 200 people barely breathed. Maria nodded once. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She simply turned and walked toward the side door, her footsteps echoing on the tile floor. The badge reader blinked green as she swiped out. The VP stepped forward again. "The Mendoza Group has agreed to reinstate contract negotiations effective immediately. This outcome was only possible because Maria Mendoza chose accountability over punishment. She could have demanded immediate termination. She could have pursued legal action. She didn't." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Let that be a lesson to all of us. When we make assumptions about people based on their appearance, their role, or their background, we don't just disrespect them, we limit ourselves. We cut ourselves off from talent, perspective, and humanity. This company will do better. We must do better." He dismissed the meeting. Sarah returned to her seat in the front row. As people filed out, no one met her eyes. No one stopped to talk to her. She heard whispers, felt the weight of judgment pressing down from all sides. She sat alone in that chair for 20 minutes after the room emptied, staring at the podium, replaying every word. 2 months later, Sarah was back at her desk on the 28th floor. The Mendoza contract had closed in early December, $2 million, 18 months of exclusivity, full execution across 14 cities. The announcement went out company-wide. There was a small celebration in the executive break room. Sarah attended, stood in the back, left early. Her name was on the signature line of the contract documents. But when the promotion announcement came in mid-January, the director position went to someone else. Someone from the operations team. someone who'd never needed a public apology to understand that every person in the building mattered. Sarah didn't appeal the decision. She didn't complain. She showed up, did her work, and went home. Every night at 7:15 p.m., Maria pushed her cleaning cart past Sarah's office. The routine never changed. Maria arrived on the 28th floor, badge reader blinking green, and worked her way through the rows of desks and conference rooms. And every night Sarah looked up from her computer. "Good evening, Maria," she said. "Good evening, Sarah," Maria replied. It wasn't warm, it wasn't cold, it was professional, equal, human. By February, other people on the floor had started doing the same thing, greeting Maria by name, asking how her night was going, thanking her for keeping the office clean. The facilities team noticed. Morale improved. People felt seen. The badge reader on the wall blinked green with each entry, each exit. A silent witness. A permanent record. Carlos Mendoza visited the branch once a month now, part of the ongoing partnership. The meetings were productive, profitable, smooth. And every time he came, he scheduled a lunch with his sister in the main cafeteria, never in the executive dining room, always in the ground floor space where everyone could see them talking, laughing, catching up on 2 years of lost time. He never scheduled client meetings during her cleaning shift. In March, Maria received a formal offer from the Mendoza Group's HR department. The email was professional, respectful, and generous. "Maria, we'd like to offer you a position as operations coordinator at our headquarters in Mexico City. Starting salary $98,000 USD annually, full benefits, relocation package, and a signing bonus. Your skills, education, and experience make you an ideal fit for our team. We hope you'll consider joining us." Maria read the email 3 times. Then she picked up her phone and called her brother. "I got the offer," she said. "And?" Carlos asked. "I'm turning it down." Silence on the other end. Then, "Why?" "Because I'm not finished here yet." "Finished with what, Mariposa? You've proven your point. You've shown you can survive on your own. You don't have to keep cleaning offices to prove anything to anyone." Maria looked around her small apartment, the one she'd furnished piece by piece with her own paychecks. The bookshelf she'd built from a kit. The kitchen table she'd found at a thrift store and refinished herself. "I'm not proving it to anyone else," she said quietly. "I'm proving it to myself. And I'm not done yet." Carlos sighed. "Okay. But the offer stands. Whenever you're ready." "Thank you." "And Maria?" "Yeah?" "Mama wants you to come home for her birthday next month, just for the weekend. Will you come?" Maria smiled. "Yeah, I'll come." She hung up and went back to work. By April, something had shifted in the building. The facilities team started receiving thank you notes from employees. Small things, handwritten cards left on desks, emails to the facilities manager praising specific team members, gift cards pooled together by departments as appreciation gestures. Maria's supervisor called her into the office one afternoon. "I don't know what you did," the supervisor said, "but people are seeing us differently now, treating us differently. I've worked here 11 years and I've never seen anything like it." Maria smiled. Maybe people just needed a reminder. A reminder of what? That we're all working in the same building. The supervisor laughed. "Well, whatever it was, keep doing it." Sarah heard about the culture shift through the grapevine. She saw the thank you notes appearing on desks in the facilities break room when she passed by one evening. She saw employees holding doors open for cleaning staff, asking about their families, learning their names. She wondered how much of it was genuine and how much was performative guilt. Then she stopped wondering and just started participating. She started bringing an extra coffee on late nights and leaving it on the break room counter with a note. "For whoever needs it, S." She started saying good morning to the security guard at the front desk instead of flashing her badge and rushing past. She started seeing people. It didn't erase what she'd done. It didn't earn her back the promotion she'd lost. But it made the weight a little lighter. In late May, Sarah was working late on a quarterly report when Maria knocked on her open office door. "Do you have a minute?" Maria asked. Sarah looked up, surprised. In 7 months, Maria had never initiated a conversation beyond the nightly greeting. "Of course," Sarah said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "Please, sit." Maria sat, still in her uniform, hands folded in her lap. "I wanted to tell you something," Maria said. "I'm leaving next month. I accepted a position with my brother's company in Mexico City." Sarah felt a strange pang of something loss, maybe, or regret. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Thank you. They sat in silence for a moment. I also wanted to say, Maria continued, that I've noticed the changes. The way you greet people now. The coffee you leave in the break room. The way you hold the elevator for the evening shift staff. Sarah looked down at her hands. It's the least I can do. It's more than that, Maria said. It's a choice. You make that choice every day now. That matters. Sarah's throat tightened. I'm sorry for what I did, for what I said. I know I already apologized publicly, but I need you to know I mean it. I was wrong, and I'm trying to do better. Maria nodded. I know. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Sarah? Yes? The badge reader doesn't just track who's in the room, Maria said. It tracks who belongs. You made me feel like I didn't belong. But you changed that. Not just for me, for everyone. That's worth something. She left. Sarah sat alone in her office, staring at the empty doorway, and for the first time in 7 months, she felt like maybe she was becoming someone she could respect. On Maria's last day, the facilities team threw her a small party in the break room. Cake, balloons, a card signed by 73 people from across the company. Carlos came to pick her up personally, meeting her in the lobby at the end of her final shift. Sarah watched from the 28th floor window as they walked out together, Maria's cleaning cart left behind, her badge returned to security. The badge reader on the wall blinked red for the first time in 2 years. No more access, but the impact remained. The following Monday, a new cleaner started on the night shift. Her name was Teresa. She spoke limited English. She pushed the same cart Maria had used. And when Sarah saw her that first night, she stood up from her desk, walked over, and extended her hand. Hi, Teresa. I'm Sarah. Welcome to the team. Teresa smiled, surprised, and shook her hand. Thank you, she said softly. Sarah returned to her desk and got back to work. The badge reader blinked green, and the access log kept recording.